You guys hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Woo! Almost. I was like, oh, I was waiting for a couple minutes to start the stream. I thought I had everything all put together. Forgot the microphone. I have something on my face. I just like smear. I just smeared some lip gloss. But hi everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you all so much for being here on this Friday. Oh, the bit rate is too low. YouTube is mad at me. Thank you all so much. We love the early crew, the people who join us early before the stream starts. It's like when you get to a movie early and you're part of like the early movie club, but instead of having a bunch of extra advertisements shoved in your face, you get to hang out with cool people. So it's actually like a cool thing as opposed to just more ads. So, hello Feels Violet, hello Dale, hello Lexi, hello Twixie Shores, hello DJ Bass Hawk, hello Orchid. Hello, Gemma. Hello, Sean. Hello, Nathan. Hello, Deanston. Hi, everyone. Missed the last few streams, but glad I'm able to be here for this one. Well, glad you could make it back another one. Hope you are doing well. Hello, Megals. Hello, Mara. Hello, Meowlena, or Meowlena. Hello, Kay Setokaiba. Hello, Samami. Hello, Chunk. Hello, Good for Gabby. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. How are we all doing? What is going on? Hello, Vera. Glad you could make it. Hello, Angie. Hello, Elena. Hello, Black Koshaka. I can never say that. Black Koshka. Black Koshka. That's what I'm going to go. I'm going to stick with that one for today. Hello, Victoria. Hello. Glad you can make it. Hello, Tom. Okay, so not my first stream, but my first time being this early to one. Well, glad you can make it. Great time to get questions in if you're here early. Hello, Chris. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, well, say hello to Kez and Haggard. And I think have I forgotten your name? It's not on purpose. Oh, William, forgot William. And Aspen Little. Hello. Welcome to all of you. We love the lurkers, by the way. No pressure to chat if you don't want to. We're all just here to like vibe and hang out and have a fun time. So if you want to just like lurk and not connect your YouTube identity with the streams you watch, totally get it. No pressure at all. Just want to make sure the people that join us feel welcome and are part of our little community here. So today, as always, on our Friday streams, well, for the most part, we are doing interactive Q&A live stream. Just some really brief things in case you're new here or it's been a while. This is an 18 plus only live stream first and foremost. So if you're not at least 18, please do not be here. We have a really great FAQ down below if you want to check that one out. It's a great compilation of resources for books, movies, educational resources besides my channel, where to buy different gear from, rope bondage advice, polyamory advice, all kinds of things. Lots of good things down the FAQ. Of course, you know, it used to be when I designed the FAQ, I would get the same like 5 questions over and over and over again. And I really feel like our community has matured in a way, not in the sense that it's like better or superior, but just that like we know some of the basics now, right? We've got a lot of the sort of like, help, I want to tell my boyfriend I want him to whatever. You know, we've got that stuff figured out. Now we're getting into the real nitty gritty of it. But I do have lots of things answered in the FAQ and in the rules down below if you want to check those out. Of course, feel free to ask whatever you like. If I feel like it's not in line with what I want to talk about, I won't answer it. And just be respectful. Don't spam the chat. Please do not do anything too wild. We have recently had some people that have decided to try and test me, and I don't appreciate it. We're gonna have a fun time, not to annoy me as the host, because I have limits, I have boundaries, and I will enforce them. So be aware of that. Just be kind, be respectful, listen to the mods, and we'll basically all be good. Just don't, other than that, you know, no medical advice, no mental health advice. I'm not going to be able to tell you if your bruise from last week is healing properly, if you should go to the ER because you have an itchy spot after spanking scene. That's not me. That's not my jam. I don't have any sort of license to practice medicine or give advice on mental health, so we're just not going there. But we do have lots of community resources if you want to ask questions. I am definitely not the arbiter of everything that is correct and right with kink. I am simply one gal with some experience and a particular perspective. And so naturally, I have my own opinions, but other people will have theirs as well. And if other people in the chat want to contribute to answers, we also love that too, because I don't always know everything, and I usually don't know everything. And other than that, I think what you want to know is this is an interactive Q&A. So we come here, we ask questions. The topics in the title are really just kind of a starting point. They're not the only thing that we're going to talk about. They're the only thing that's like, you know, on topic for today. Literally ask whatever you feel like. It could be dating advice, relationship advice, kink advice, the BDSM stuff, polyamory, opening up a relationship, whatever y'all want to talk about, asexuality to queer issues, whatever's on your noggin, feel free to ask. The main thing is that we do go in the order that questions come in, so asking early is always the best bet if you want to get your question answered. If you want to make sure your question gets answered right away, we do have Superchats and Streamlabs. It'll highlight your question on screen. It's very cute, nice little animation for it. And other than that, just like hang out, vibe, watch my dog be cute in the background, and we'll just hang out for a little while. Oh, is this a mayhem shirt? No, it's not a specific band. It actually is Mary Wyatt, and they are like my current favorite brand. They are a small, made in the UK based brand, and they do really good, just like simple, staple goth pieces. And so if you're in the UK, I definitely recommend them. If they are having a promo where they have like free shipping for the US, I totally recommend it. They have lots of really great options, very, very high quality clothing, and no, it's good stuff. And you get to wear stuff like this, and you don't even have to like a band to be able to wear it. You can just be like, this is just a brand shirt. I mean, this isn't even, there's no sort of like, oh, you like them, name 3 of their songs. That's not this one most popular song. You don't even have to do that. You just get to wear the shirt. It's pretty cool. But I really like Mary Wyatt. I really hope that they get picked up by like a big brand, like a, I don't know what's a good, like, maybe hub for alternative clothing brands, but I really hope that someone somewhere picks them up and, like, starts importing their stuff, because it would be great to be able to shop from them in the US for sure. Yes, and you don't have to ask a question. You can also just, like, donate or say something. Why is it called a noggin? I don't know, Hellhound. I would love to know the etymology of the word noggin, though. That's actually, I'm sure that some kind of, that feels kind of like an old, like nog has to be like some kind of like old English word. That's my current inclination, is that nog is somehow related to like some old English thing. Ooh, new lingerie, always fun. Love the thumbs up on the stream. Thank you for that. Okay, I definitely saw a question like pretty early, so I want to make sure I don't miss it. Ooh, quitting cigarettes today. Wish me luck. Oh my gosh. Well, good luck, Amber. Kicking a smoking habit is really, really difficult. I hope you're able to do that. It's not an easy journey. There's like tons of apps now you can download for like helping you keep track of sobriety or like quitting smoking. Definitely get some of those if you feel like you need support, but it is always better for your long-term health, and I wish you the very best in that journey. And every journey starts with the first step, or like some kind of greeting card type saying, but good luck for sure. Get your coffee. Don't worry about it. Oh, okay, here we go. My girlfriend and I have very recently gone all in on an FLR relationship. Do you have any suggestions or tips? So for people who don't know, an FLR is a female-led relationship. And I know on Amazon, I haven't read these yet, but there are like half a handful of books that are on like how to have an FLR and like what that means. I'm personally not too sure like if there's a separation or a boundary between like FLRs versus like normal DS relationships. Like I get the sense a lot of people that are maybe averse to saying that what they do is BDSM will use the word or the phrase FLR to say that instead, because they like to have a separation between like, oh, like I just have a female-led relationship, because a lot of people have stereotypes about women that are dominant and their personalities, and they try to have a sense of separation between their relationship and what that stereotype is. But I am going to give advice sort of based on that I assume that you were talking about like a female-led relationship in a BDSM sense. If you don't mean in a BDSM sense, I would love to know more about what you want to have in your relationship. So let me like fill me in. Let me know the details so I can help you out. Also, love all the viewers. Thank you all so much for being here on this Friday, spending a little bit of it with me and with Bandita. We really appreciate it. So I think definitely, first of all, if you're really recently getting into an FLR relationship, I think now is a really, really good time to start getting on the same page about what your goals and aspirations for the relationship are. Because everyone comes into, whether it be a power exchange relationship, a top bottom relationship, something just like sadomasochistic without a label, whatever it is, everyone comes in with different expectations and goals for the relationship. So if you haven't already, I would sit down and have a conversation about like, okay, this is what my fantasy looks like. This is what I'm hoping to do in our relationship, like right now, or in like a year, or like 5 years, right? Because, like, for some people, what they're driving towards is they want a 24/7 master slave dynamic. And they're hoping to get to a point where, you know, you call me it, and I sleep in a cage under the bed, and I have my head shaved, and I don't work outside the house, and I'm chained to the kitchen for 12 hours a day, and then chained in the bedroom for 12 other hours a day, or whatever it is. And like, I want my whole life to just be like focused on you, like a little gremlin. That's what my life's gonna be. And like other people, they want a really romantic, sensual, like sort of like maybe like an inverted 1950s household where it's like a boss babe, like mama of the house who like is the breadwinner, and you're like the stay-at-home house husband, and like you take care of the house all day, and like it's very sweet and very endearing, very romantic, but there is still a high level of power exchange there. Or it could be like a number of things, right? So it's like it's or it could just be like, I don't really have any like big goals. I just want to like experience pegging. I want to do foot worship. I want to have like these certain fetish needs met. Like it could be anything on a spectrum. So definitely get on the same page about what your goals are for the relationship. If you haven't done something like a yes, no, maybe checklist before, I'm going to assume, because this is usually the case, but please correct me if I'm wrong in making this assumption. Oftentimes in FLRs, I mean, really honestly, regardless of gender, I think the initiation of a lot of power exchange relationships for two otherwise previously vanilla people tends to be the S type trying to initiate to the D type and kind of being like, hey, can you dominate me? Like, that would be really awesome if you could do that. So I'm going to assume that, like, you maybe have experience or have thought about this for a while, and your girlfriend is, like, brand new to this. So if you haven't done a yes or maybe checklist, that is a really good tool for going through like a bunch of potential kinks, whether or not you want to give them, receive them. It's an absolute 100% yes or an absolute 100% hard no. Anywhere on that spectrum, it's a really good tool to do. I recommend doing it where you do one, she does one, and then after you both do them, you sit and compare and you go, okay, so here are overlaps, and you get like a highlighter. I recommend doing these like physically on a sheet of paper if you can do that. You could do them on the computer to like fill them out, but print them out, have a highlighter, highlight where your overlaps are, and then highlight in a different color, like any of your hard no's, and be like, okay, this is like a hard no, this is like 100% never ever gonna do. Okay, now we can kind of figure out where we can really start to build this relationship and go from there. And I think initially as well, it's always really good to establish a communication pattern. Establish some kind of method to keep that communication line open, because if you get really deep into a relationship and you're perpetuating this pattern of like, we don't talk to each other, we go with the flow, we feel things out, we don't like to talk, you know, it's all, we're all like not guessing necessarily, but we don't actively check in. Establish that pattern in the relationship early on of like, this is a relationship where we do have power exchange, but we also check in. That could be check-ins during a scene, after a scene, some kind of like weekly check-in with like a meeting on like a Saturday over coffee, like in the morning. It could be you keeping a daily diary that she then reviews. That can also be really revealing if you like that very like deep emotional vulnerability in your relationships. That can be a really good tool for getting that, is like having a diary that you share with your partner where you can write down all your thoughts, your anxieties, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, and have that like disclosure. Be careful though. I don't recommend that for everyone in like every relationship, because that can quickly become toxic and negative in the wrong hands. So be careful with that one, but it is a good method if you want to build up a level of like emotional vulnerability to a partner. And yeah, just make check-ins and talking about stuff very, very normal. I think we can get in our heads about talking and communication because in everyday society, like vanilla society, we are taught that communication means we're doing something bad. The only reason we communicate is when we aren't compatible, when we're not good enough lovers, when it's too difficult, and that if it's really good, you should never ever have to talk about anything explicitly. But most people that have good relationships have better relationships when they talk more. So find some kind of way to talk regularly that makes sense with your dynamic. And I guess I'll just like for you, and I don't know you, but I'm just gonna give some general advice because I think this is another problem that like eager newer submissives tend to run into with like newer dominant people is be careful about not accidentally pushing her boundaries, because oftentimes people go, well, the submissive has all the power and the dom is this big bad scary person who can do anything to anyone, and they have to be contained and controlled. That's why limits exist, is to contain the dominant partner from doing whatever they want. In reality, submissives and bottoms can also be very pushy and coercive without even meaning to. And so check in with yourself, make sure you're leaving room for her to grow and experience and have that communication open with you, so that way she can say things if she doesn't like something or doesn't want to do it again or doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't know how she feels about it. So leave that line open, leave that door open, and don't try to, I guess, if you're over enthusiastic, it can pressure people into saying yes to things when they're really new to kink, because they go, oh, well, I should do this because it would just make them so happy. And you have to remember, this is not like a vanilla activity where it's like, oh, he's so excited about going to see the Barbie movie and I've already seen it twice, but I guess I'll go a third time if he really wants to. Like, this can have really long-term ramifications for your relationship emotionally if there's a lot of pushing towards like, but I really need this, but I want this, but I really need you to peg me. Like, if she's really not into pegging, I'm just picking pegging because I said that earlier, but it tends to be a popular activity. Just be careful on the line between like stating what your needs are and being pushy. And that can be difficult to suss out when you're trying to advocate for yourself, when you're not used to doing that a lot. But just like play it safe, you can always revisit it if you really feel like there's one thing that you want to have happen that's not happening enough or at all. And that's the advantage of having those communication lines open, is you get that opportunity to revisit. But that being said, it is like a pretty good first question. So thank you. Thank you for getting us started with that one. Great. It also happened to me. I get people being enthusiastic, but it's not a reason to disregard boundaries. Yes. And again, I think it goes back to how the way that oftentimes boundaries are talked about, especially in the kink like setting, it's talked about like, oh, well, as a bottom, you have to have limits and boundaries and know what they are, because if you don't know, this big bad evil top is gonna run over you with a lawnmower and you're gonna get, chopped down like freshly cut grass. And it seems to a lot of people like it doesn't ever go in the opposite direction. And as a bottom, as a submissive, you absolutely do have the ability to pressure and coerce a partner as well into doing activities they don't want to do. So be very cognizant of that. And it is like a growing process. Like, you're both learning, you're both excited, hopefully. And so there's going to be mistakes. There should be grace for that. But it's a repeated pattern you have to be worried about. And like kind of enabling that and habituating that to be your like usual way of interacting is not a good idea. Yep, definitely read the FAQ and the rules if you have not already. It's a great place to start. Lots of good information in there. Just free for your use. Also, I do recommend for people in the chat, if you want to leave a question, if you really want to make sure it gets highlighted, if you have the ability to, you can also include the question mark emoji and it'll highlight it for me and I can see it right away that way. I'd love if you have any advice for someone coming in as someone's second submissive. I find a lot of resources for polyamory and a lot of resources for submissive, but not much for mixing them. Well, Angie, I am so excited to answer your question because this is like exactly my wheelhouse. So, you're right, there are not a lot of resources for polyamory and mixing polyamory and kink together. There is one book. It is by Raven Caldera and Joshua Tenpenny. It is called Power Circuits. However, what they talk about in that book is, it's been a while since I've read it, so don't quote me on this, but what I remember is that in the beginning of their relationship, Raven was already married to a woman who was vanilla, and then Josh came in as like a boy and as a submissive, where there was already one relationship, there was a married relationship, but it wasn't kinky, and then he came in as like this new partner, and they had some like funny rules, and there's like one part I remember where Raven remarks that he must be the only master who sometimes washes his own dishes because his wife was very worried about him having a submissive like making him lazy or like becoming like too egotistical, like becoming too big for his britches. And so she was like, you still have to do your own chores sometimes. It can only ever be Joshua. And I thought that was so funny because I'm like, that is just like, isn't that so funny, like how unique that is? Like there's just so many different ways to approach the interaction between submission and polyamory, and like especially if you're going to be like combining households and like somebody's going to be living with you, then it gets like really complicated very quickly. But coming into someone's second submissive, I mean, my experience in polyamory, and I'm sure other people are different, I always feel like it's easier emotionally to come into a relationship as the new person versus being the existing partner. And so, for you, I would probably, my number one recommendation is, I mean, it kind of goes back to the first question again, but really it's oftentimes about like having open communication. And I find a lot of people with power exchange relationships with multiple submissives, they either like try to go like in two opposite directions, and like you might not want this to happen, so be very clear if you don't want this to happen. Oftentimes people either try to go, they're like, oh, we're like sub sisters, we're like slave sisters, and we're like serving this person together, and we're like twins. We're twins serving the same, like you're was it Ram and Ram? Like fucking like Ray Zero, like having like the two twins that are both like doing the service stuff. Like people try to like you're identical in every way, and like there you can even get into some kind of like performative bisexuality territory for like the preference of the mutually shared partner, which like there's nothing more repulsive to me on this planet than two women that are only into each other because of a man. I hate that on a visceral level, but that's my own baggage to carry. That's my own deal. If you're into that, you get to do that, but it's not my thing. But so yeah, so they either try to go like the very like subby sisters, OMG, sisters for life, like oh my god, we're best friends now, like type territory, which I feel like can be like very forced. And the other direction, which is like only one can be the alpha submissive, and they like try to pit you against each other. The dom tries to pit you against each other, or you just pit each other against yourselves because you're each trying to vie for like supremacy and like preference in the dynamic. And it's a very, very hierarchical way of doing polyamory, where the first way is like almost radically egalitarian, where you're both identical and so you have to be equal. And the other option is like very strict hierarchy, where only one of you can be the best favored submissive. And I don't think either one of those are, well, I feel like the latter is like obviously more unhealthy if you don't want that dynamic. Either one of them can be healthy if that's a dynamic you want with your partner and with your metamor. But if you don't want to have those dynamics and you feel forced into them, then it becomes a problem. Or if you're doing that but it doesn't like bring you joy, it makes you feel worse, then be very cautious around that. Yeah. A slave harem sounds really exhausting. Those who do that are truly built different. They truly are. I mean, there's a reason when you do surveys of polyamory, like the average number of partners is like 2.3. Like polyamory is not generally about, for most people, having like 4, 5, 7, 10 partners, because that's just like, who has time for that? In this economy, you have to commute for 3 hours a day. Like, how do you have time for 10 partners? I don't think so. Yeah, so I do not, I just recommend like being really aware of what you're getting into. And I guess the way that I think about it, if with both sides, like if a new person is entering into a relationship with one of my partners, or if I'm entering into a new relationship with somebody. Also, thank you for the follow over on Twitch. I appreciate it. We stream on Twitch on Mondays. We stream Diablo. It's very fun. I like it. It's a good time. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, with either way I'm entering into a new relationship, I try to focus on that I want to have a positive experience with other people. I don't have to be their best friend. I don't have to like be like, "OMG, girl power, let's hang out. Yay, yes. Let's kiss each other now." Like, I'm very anti the I'm forcing myself into a bi relationship to like please a mutual like het partner. Like, I just don't like that. It's not my vibe, but some people do it. Because there's somebody always does something, you know, there's always one example out there of somebody who does the thing, and that's one of them. But yeah, I try to just like, okay, we want to have a positive relationship. We don't have to be friends, but I want them to know that there's not any sense of like jealousy or possessiveness. But like me as a person who does polyamory, like and some people are like fucking chaos demons where they're like, they want to come in and like fuck things up and they want to be the center of attention. I know people where their whole fucking thing is they want to be everyone's primary partner, and they'll date like 5 people and then they'll be like, well, I can't date you because I can't be primary to you. And it's like, you have 4 other partners that are your primary partners, supposedly. What do you mean? So I find that kind of funny that there are people who try to always be the center of attention. So there are some people who like try to be destructive and controlling, and their personality is just honestly probably not very well suited to long-term dynamics like that. But bless them, they try. And it's a very southern bless them, by the way. I mean that in my southern sense of the word bless them. But you know, they try, and it just doesn't work. But like for me, I do try to have like a sense of like harmony, and I never want to take away anything from other partners. Like that makes me feel so bad. Like if I am interfering with like somebody else's relationship dynamic, like whether it be a power exchange thing or a sex thing or like a shared space thing, I never want someone to like feel uncomfortable in my space, in their space. Like I never want to put anyone out. So I just try to make it very, very clear up front that like, hey, I'm here to develop this relationship with this person and also like support your existing relationship. Like I want to come in and I don't want to be a destructive force that takes away time and like makes things worse. I want to have things be better. How can I help make that happen? Like what can I do that makes you comfortable? Like never any pressure to like hang out, text, call, be best friends, whatever it is. Like just I never want to take up more space than like is like sort of natural for me to take up. I never want to do that, and so I just like try to come in very honest, very open, and make it very clear very early on that I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone. I'm only trying to add and like help things be better, and especially with a second submissive. If you're coming in and there's already a submissive in the relationship, I think you have to be cognizant of like they might have like special words they use with each other, special titles. Maybe they've done certain things like orgasm control, posture training, position training. Maybe they like have some kind of like ritual greeting they do, or she wears a certain collar, or I guess I'm sort of assuming the other submissive identifies as a woman and uses she her pronouns, but like sorry if I'm making a false assumption there, but yeah, I think you got to be cognizant of that, and I think you have to be respectful of that, and make sure you know what those things are ahead of time. And hopefully, if you have like a good, a hinge partner, which a hinge is like, if 2 people, which are the ends on my fingers here, my fingernails, maybe let's think about it that way. The ends, those are the 2 metamors, and then the hinge partner is the partner they share. So your hinge partner, which is the partner you both share, they have to be willing to be very upfront and very communicative about like, hey, like, only this one partner calls me daddy. I want to have this kind of dynamic with you. Like for right now, daddy is kind of a special thing with this person, or this pose or this activity or this type of scene or this toy. At least for my experience, I certainly have known people where there is a very deep spiritual, emotional attachment to certain activities, words, toys, and having that be flippantly used with somebody else, especially a brand new partner, can feel really bad and very upsetting. So just being cognizant of where those things are. Yeah, I just like feel like harmony. I think harmony is really the key. Like keeping that in mind, endeavoring to create that, and remembering that the reason why you're doing polyamory is because, well, not to put words in your mouth, but for me, part of the reason why I do polyamory is because I want people's lives to be better, and polyamory is for the people that I date, at least. It's a way to improve their lives and like have the kinds of emotional connections and diversity of relationships they want to have. And yeah, but also don't ignore your own feelings. Like if something feels wrong, feels bad, you don't feel like you're being respected, also speak up about that. Like it's not harmony to the detriment of your own mental well-being. It's trying to strive towards harmony, but also keeping an eye on things if harmony doesn't seem to be achievable, or if there's like sabotage going on, or like a really disproportionate amount of jealousy. Because that can also be the case, especially if they haven't had to like share their dom before. I feel like submissives get like more possessive than wives do. Like, I don't know if that's like my experience with like polyamory and kink and the combinations they're in, but I feel like other submissives tend to get way more possessive than like fucking like spouses do, which is kind of wild, but it is a thing. Also, I did decide to wear this today, just for the people that were like, "Oh, is she gonna wear a collar again?" Yeah, I just wear this occasionally. It's fashion. Get over it. This is fashion. Fashion is happening. What's your opinion about other kink educators flirting with their audience? Hate it. Disgusting. Completely inappropriate. Why would you do that? Like, there's no reason to do that. I know people, like, real life educators where they, like, teach classes in person. They teach rope bondage, especially. They're, like, the most likely to do this. It really annoys me because rope bondage is probably the most dangerous, but alas, they do. And they will flirt and find play partners from their audience members, and I just feel like that's so inappropriate. No, just like no, I just there's no way that sits right for me. Absolutely no way at all. Okay, so great question, Angie. I'm eager to see any follow-ups on that one, but we'll keep trucking along here for the time being. This is my first time getting a chance to see your live stream, and I'm happy. I find many of your videos educational. Well, thank you so much, Mara. Glad you could make it. I'm new to the lifestyle altogether, so I will probably have questions for anyone willing to help. No worry. No worries at all. Feel free to ask away. We are here to help. We are your personal kink hotline. Man, I should do that. I should have like a call-in line. That would be fun. Have like one of those like old radio talk show like call-in numbers. That would be fun. Hello, enjoyed the stream last night as well. Question, would you consider expanding on the 1950s HOH topic? So, I think head of household. I loved your video on it, or maybe you have some recommendations or other resources, or for other resources. I am not sure how I would expand on my existing video on 1950s, like head of household relationships. Is there anything in particular you feel like I could have talked more about, or you felt like I didn't cover enough, like maybe like day-to-day operations, or getting in character, like finding your style? Like, what about that topic like, from what I've covered so far, like what else is still missing? Because I'm totally open to talking about it more. Because like, I know what I know in my brain, and I'm not an audience member, so I don't know maybe what could have been missing for you, or like other resources that you would want to see. I know we have at least one person in the chat who's like a big 1950s person. If they want to contribute their thoughts, recommendations on resources, I am sure they would love to share. But for me, I think I need a little bit more information on like what I would need to expand on before I commit to saying, yes, I can do that. I have to like really sit and think about it, but I'm open to it. Will we see a video on PVC, leather, and or latex and its role in the world of BDSM? So I made a latex video years and years and years ago, and I removed it because it got fully demonetized on my channel, and I feel like I was risking a channel strike just having it up, because YouTube is currently very strict on what it considers to be fetish content, even talking about something that is a fetish. And I really don't think I could talk about leather or latex without it being talked about like it's a fetish. That might be, I mean, because for some people, like a lot of people actually, latex is a fetish, not just like a kink activity, but a fetish. So I feel like actually I'm going to put that in my idea list for maybe a Patreon video at one point. Because you're right, it is, both of those are very important to the kink community as a whole, and are a really big part of, they are a really big part of like the history of the community. And yeah, I just feel like I would need to be able to do it justice by talking about it in its full context, but I don't really think I could talk about that on YouTube, because YouTube just like, literally just having the word fetish in a title, saying it in the video at any time, having it in the thumbnail, any of that, YouTube automatically fully demonetizes and restricts the video. And then like nobody would see it, so then what would be the point, right? Like it's silly. You have a long-winded question, Sean? No worries. If you put your, however many parts you need to do, put your chat in the, put the message in the chat of whatever your question is, and then like I'll keep an eye on it, and then you let me know when you're done with your question. Go for it. I am ready and waiting for your long question. I love it. Yes, if you ask a question with the emoji, with the question mark emoji, it does help it be more visible. That's correct. I actually do want to look up the etymology for the word noggin. It's a complete aside to this. All it keeps popping up is the Nickelodeon brand. Oh, interesting. It is from the late 16th century in the sense of a small drinking cup of unknown origin. The linguists do not know where the term noggin comes from. It either means a person's head or a small quantity of liquor, typically a quarter of a pint. Okay, so now we know. We know that they don't know where the word noggin comes from. That is fascinating. We have no idea. Somebody somewhere in England made up the word noggin one time and it just stuck around. Oh, that is great. That is so funny. I crashed again? That sucks. I already have a disclaimer that everything that I make is only for educational purposes and that it's not intended for children, and I literally tell YouTube on the back end I have to manually click a box when I upload a video and it says, is this made for kids, yes or no? And I always click no, and they don't care. I have followed every single rule that they have outlaid for me, and it still does not matter. So, big tear. Okay, lost my spot in the chat here. Give me 1 second to find where my spot was. In the meantime, if you want to, give the stream a like, follow the channel if you haven't already. It's a great opportunity to see even more amazing content from me. Also, I decided I'm replacing this one with like one of those like flower lamps. Looks like a flowering tree. Just as a random note while I'm getting back to where I was in the chat. Just a little update there. Okay, we're still, okay, everyone's saying hello. Okay, I think, okay, here we are. I am back to where I was. I was wondering if you have some advice as an ace person. I am an ace person. The thing is, my partner is having really low libido, at least with me. Do you have any advice for not getting all sad and weird about it? Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay, I completely understand where you're coming from, because I think libido issues can be kind of this self-reinforcing spiral of like everyone involved being miserable, because then you start having a low libido, which makes you feel bad because then you're not living up to your expectations of being a powerful, amazing sexual being. But then your partner sees you not being sexual towards them, and then they go, well, but then I must be bad and unsexy and gross because my partner doesn't want to have sex anymore. And so then, like, you feel sad, and then they feel guilty for making you sad, and then you see them being more sad, and then you get more sad because you're still not getting sex that you want, but you also feel bad for them, and it just goes all the way down until like no one's happy. So it is very easy to get locked into that pattern of like, I don't know if it's reinforcement or what I would call that, but like everyone involved is just like not having a good time. I mean, I think it's probably haven't already. This may seem obvious, but it's worth just like stating for, if not you, other people listening, like, if you can have a conversation about where that low libido is coming from, that can be really helpful. It could be from diet and stress. It could be from medication they're taking. It could be natural hormonal changes. It might be signs of an underlying illness or, you know, something like that. It could be if they have a chronic illness, it could be flaring up, and this is one manifestation of that. It could be a million different things. And some of them can be helped by medical intervention, changing the dosage on a medication, getting another medication like Wellbutrin in addition to like antidepressants. Like there's lots of different solutions for helping with a low libido. If it's more related to some kind of medical thing, talk to your doctor about it. There are solutions for that. But really what you're dealing with, I think, is more that feeling of like not getting sad and weird about it. I think it's perfectly acceptable to like ask your partner for verbal reassurance, not so much to where you're like making the low libido about you, like, and suddenly it's like I'm having my own like distressing medical issues, but then my partner is only ever focused on themselves and their sadness about it. Like, you know, there's a balancing act here, but it's okay to ask your partner and be like, hey, like, you know, I know we haven't been as physical lately, but, you know, you do really love me, right? Like, you do still want to be in this relationship, and like getting that reassurance, maybe like brainstorming other non-sexual reasons together, why you enjoy the relationship, why you enjoy each other as people, why you're in that relationship, and then just like having that list you can go back to of like, you know, they love my sense of humor. They love how kind I am. They love the weird thing I do in the morning when I make my tea, my little like tea ritual I do. You know, whatever it is that's about you as a person, and also about them as a person, you can make them a list and outlining why you appreciate them outside of their sex, outside of the libido. And that your relationship isn't only sustained off of just having sex, because frankly, unless you're, you know, very aromantic and you don't really want to have long-term relationships, most people's relationships are not solely sustained off of just good sex. So there has to be other reasons why you're together in that relationship, and then just focusing on those, and then finding other and I don't really know how this matches with low libido. There is a book I really like that's called Hot and Unbothered. There's a couple chapters in there where they talk about, like, so the kind of the last two chapters are really focused on this, where they talk about like sexual desire mismatches, because that's like the most common issue in relationships. Is either like from the very start there's a mismatch, or a mismatch develops as, you know, kids are born, menopause happens, low testosterone, illness, surgery, life circumstances. Like, it's very, very common to deal with libido mismatch. And so there's tons of resources in that book. Again, it's called Hot and Unbothered. I think for a lot of people, like, when they identify low libido issues and they want to get back to like feeling normal in the relationship again, there's a lot of pressure on that physical connection and like being able to perform the sex. But there's a tool you can use. And I think it's normally used in like sex therapy, like with a clinician, but Hot and Unbothered has like a whole section about how to do it with yourself. And then there's also resources online, something called sensate focus, which is it's basically about reintroducing physical contact in the relationship without the goal being about getting to sex. And it can be a good way of getting your physical needs met, feeling physically reconnected without it being about like, we haven't had sex in 64 days. Oh my God, we got to do the sex right now. We're all going to explode and die. Like, it helps relieve that pressure of like, we're doing this slowly, intentionally, because we want to have this connection, but we're not pressuring ourselves to get to any particular place. But I guess, again, and I'm kind of like, there's so much advice I want to give about this because it's like such a big issue for so many people. But for getting sad and weird about it, I guess, one is I would say don't force yourself to not feel sad and weird. Your feelings are okay. It's okay to feel sad and weird. If you want to be able to, I just need to keep this book on my desk, but I don't have it on my desk, so now I'm going to go for my cards instead. But there is, I feel like I'm fucking dealing Yu-Gi-Oh cards. There is a great tool that I reference all the time. So you know that you're feeling sad, and that sadness is trying to tell you something. You go through the situation in your head of like why you feel sad. You go, okay, I'm feeling sad, and I know that doesn't fit the situation that I'm currently in right now. So what I am going to do instead is, and let's see, trying to find the, here we go. We use a tool called opposite to emotion. So it means you act opposite to the behavior certain emotions pull you into. So if you know that you're feeling sad because of the loss of libido in a relationship, but you know that your partner still cares about you, it's not permanent, you're not doing anything wrong, maybe the degree of your sadness doesn't fit the facts for the scenario that you are currently in, and I don't have like the full set of cards in here, or these cards, you don't have the full set of every opposite to emotion action, but the closest one is for depression. And depression drives us towards inactivity, isolation, and a focus on negative thinking. So we do the opposite of what our emotions are telling us to do, right? We find a way to find connection. We increase our self-care. We practice encouraging thoughts and affirming thoughts. We practice encouraging and affirming our thoughts. And and you just, the key is to get moving with opposite to emotion before your rut becomes too deep and before you get too buried in that. There's also maybe some other things related to this one, like maybe like anxiety, maybe guilt, maybe you feel guilty about the difference in your relationship. So, for example, if you are feeling like shame about the situation, you can do the opposite emotion for shame, and that could be a good thing to do. This is like my favorite thing about DBT, honestly, is like there's the opposite to emotion skill. It's so helpful. Like if you get yourself in like emotional ruts where like you're like, I feel sad, so I do this, and I keep feeling sad, and I can't stop feeling sad. And this is like, if you're dealing with clinical depression, this is not meant for that. I actually don't know if you would really want to use DBT if you're like dealing with clinical depression, but I don't know what the research on that says, because it's mostly not developed for that. It's mostly developed for disorders of underregulation as opposed to overregulation or emotional disconnection. But that can be a good tool for like, okay, you can validate your emotions, you can connect with them, try to figure out what they're causing you to feel and why you're feeling it and what they're pulling you to do, and then you can consciously choose to act contrary from that, so long as your partner is game for that, right? Like if your emotions are telling you to like withdraw, the opposite action is not to like bother your partner ceaselessly with text messages. Like there's a happy medium of like how to behave in that. But if you guys want to know what this is the DBT deck. And this is, I would not, if you're not otherwise familiar with DBT, I would not recommend just like buying this on its own and trying to like figure out what DBT is just from this. This is a really good adjunct. Yes, it's primarily developed for BPD originally. I said disorders of underregulation because it's also really good for other disorders that involve underregulation besides BPD. But DBT is a really good skill to have. It's, again, like if you actually want to do DBT, it's group therapy in person, a lot of sessions. It is super helpful. And like you can, if you can't afford therapy, you can't afford group therapy, don't have the time, there is a great book you can buy on Amazon. That's literally the handbook for DBT and also skills like this. But even just like learning the emotional regulation skills, I think are like, I don't know any other therapy that like outlines the emotional regulation skills and the distress tolerance skills that DBT does in the way that it does. And it's very, very good at that. Anyways, that's the extent of the mental health care advice I'm willing to give in this stream. Like, just telling you guys to, like, use DBT skills, I know, is, like, that's about all I'm willing to do, but they are very, very, very helpful, and I genuinely think they're really great if you can recognize that you're, like, if I'm feeling really sad, like, for example, like, I go through this where I feel like I'm being rejected by people and people don't care about me. So that makes me want to withdraw first and then like not say anything. And like, you know, if you're going to let go, I'm going to let go first, like kind of behavior. And I realize it doesn't really help. So then I try to like send a message, remember to reach out, you know, reach out for that connection as opposed to like trying to burn the bridge first. And it's like a really good thing to do. Yeah. Thank you so much, especially for validating my sadness and weirdness. You're very welcome. Like, I think it's so normal to feel what you're feeling. It's not, you're not in a lonely boat by any means on that one. It's something a lot of people go through, and there's lots of tools out there to help you both through that process and getting to a better relationship on the other side. Because honestly, like, I don't know, it's kind of like looking at it with a silver lining. I genuinely do think if you go through a period of time in your relationship where you have mismatched libidos, whereas previously you were like totally always in sync, no confrontation, no issues, no problems, this will really teach you how to communicate and how to really connect on a deep level, and that's really, really great to have. DBT is so complementary to polyamory, kink, and just human connection in general. I really think it is. I think there are some skills in it that I don't think are like fully overlap into that. There is actually a new model of DBT that's being developed. It's called RODBT, which is radically open dialectical behavioral therapy. And that is for disorders of overregulation. So that's more designed for people that have OCD, eating disorders, people that tend to overregulate and overcontrol and thus withdraw from connection and not want to reach out to people and not be emotionally vulnerable and open. That one has a lot of really good skills for making human connections and making friends. Like, how do you actually go about making friends as an adult? And there's tons of stuff in there about vulnerability and trust and appropriately ramping up vulnerability and trust in a relationship, as opposed to like either being like, you've been friends for 10 years, but all you do is go, sup? You watch the game last night, like sort of the stereotypical like male friend model, or being like, I've known you for 2 days, here's my trauma, like finding a happy medium between that and like navigating, like, how do you develop that as an adult, and how do you maybe let go of that tight holding on of, I can't let go of this, I can't share this, because if I let go of this one thing, my whole life will fall apart. It's a whole process. I don't really know many therapists that are like trained in RODBT at this point in time, but I think it's going to be a big thing. I think it's going to be a big thing. I am very excited for it, because right now RODBT skills are really only accessible from like essentially like an online workbook for clinicians. So if you're not a clinician and you're not familiar with therapy speak, it's probably difficult to parse out, but someday it'll be more available. Yep, also plain old CBT does work well for depression. They have studies on it and stuff. Sure, the cool kid that DBT is, but CBT can be different. Yes, CBT is like the main model, especially for community mental health settings. CBT is like, it's the Windex. It is the Windex of therapeutic techniques, not to belittle it. I personally don't like CBT all that much. It's not really my favorite modality. I think clinicians have to be kind of well trained in it to like not do the like, you're depressed, you're being abused, have you decided to just alter your thoughts about the bad things that you're thinking about this? What if we just look at the abuse we're experiencing and the trauma and then just decide to feel happier about it? Like, I know it's not really what CBT is about, but like, my God, I have heard some horror stories from community mental health settings where you think that's basically what the therapist is communicating to the client, is just like, have you tried to not be so sad about your chronic illness? Like, Jesus. That can be bad. Like, so I want to validate that, like, not everybody's experiences with CBT is great, but it's very common and is more accessible, and certainly a lot of the cornerstones of the core parts of DBT are based on CBT. The CBT that exists in the everyday world, not the one that involves cocks and balls. There are no roosters and basketballs involved in that one. Okay. Moving on. Let us ask and answer more questions. Recently there was an incident where a dom messed up and people online came down super hard. Curious for your take on the line between holding someone accountable and beating the issue to death. Well, I must have missed whatever that was. I mean, I feel like this is... something that across the internet, outside of kink, we also deal with, like kink, polyamory, pop culture, commentary YouTube videos, fucking Twitch streamers, all the way down the line. I don't know. This is like sort of, I'm trying to figure out how to verbalize this because I know exactly what you're talking about. I feel like, what's the word I'm looking for? I can think of the word, I think it's one of those words I've like read in books a lot, but I'm like, how do I say the word? Is this even what I think it means? Yes. Excoriate. Oh, there's like 3 pronunciations for this. What is this? Google, help me. Help me, Google. What is it? Wait, now I can't hear it. Where'd it go? Excoriate. Okay, excoriate. There is a tendency to excoriate people online, and I don't know. If I could psychoanalyze this, if I could evaluate what I think happens in the community and why this ends up happening, not knowing the specifics of the scenario you're talking about. As a community, we have a very large problem, both in polyamory and within kink, of holding people accountable. We know there are people that repeatedly abuse their positions of power, abuse their status, abuse their money, abuse their name to continually hurt people for decades. They get banned from one place, they pop up somewhere else. They make their own dungeon. They go online, they change their name. They hide their identity online so new people don't know who they are. FetLife has rules in place to make it very difficult to directly name people by their usernames and call out, this is the person who did a bad thing, this is what their name is, this is what they're called. It's very difficult for real meaningful consequences to carry on past a certain point if somebody is very motivated to not take accountability, or they have enablers in the community that say, it's not a big deal. They did nothing wrong. Everyone is a snowflake. It's those goddamn SJWs and their cancel culture run amok and their snowflake mentalities, and everyone wants to be handheld, and BDSM is dangerous and bad, and it does go wrong sometimes, and blah blah blah. You can't complain because we're real edge players, and so if something goes bad, it's not the other person's fault or whatever. They come with some kind of justification for it all being okay, that things go wrong, and like, fuck you for complaining out loud about it, because as an S-type, as a submissive, you should know that this is going to happen at some point. And so initially, so we're starting off from this point of, like, in the community, we know that there is an issue with abusers and bad people not being called out, not being held accountable. In the times and in the places where we do have some model of accountability, right? There's an accountability circle. There's some kind of like restorative justice framework, which I'm very skeptical of. I don't really think that works. I have, to this point, outside of the communities in which it was originally created to serve, I have not seen restorative justice actually do that. It's mostly just been more re-traumatizing, a very, very long, fruitless process for most people that have experienced it, in my observation. So you have like sort of this lack of accountability, and people who don't want to take accountability are just sort of impervious to it. So it's sort of this like underlying anger already, where like you sort of feel like even when people fuck up, they're not really ever going to apologize, and really ever going to change. The people kind of already have the anger right there on the surface. And then when you do hear a story of somebody doing something bad in the community, there is this, especially because if it's like on FetLife, for example, where you can't name the person and the identity is unknown, you get people that come out very, very hard, to the point of, I think, maybe taking it beyond a place of being constructive, of like, there's this like, okay, there's a story of a really bad thing happening. What's more important, supporting the person that the bad thing happened to, or flaming the person who did the thing wrong? And I think a lot of people tend to, and I tend to do this too, tend to go more towards flaming the person that did the bad thing for doing the bad behavior, and sort of the grief you have to go through as like, oh my God, there's another person who fucked up. There's somebody else who fucked up again, and you know nothing meaningful is really going to come out of it. But when it gets into personal attacks of this person, going to their Instagram page or their non-FetLife social media, because I'm assuming this happened on FetLife, but I don't really know. Going to their pages and their places and calling them out specifically, and like calling them, depending on what the level of the thing was, right? I'm assuming based on what you're describing to me, we're not talking about somebody that was like outed as like abusing 3 people, or somebody that had a habit of like manipulating 18-year-olds into power exchange relationships. We're probably talking about like something a little bit more like worth talking about, but maybe more mild than that, right? Like somebody who caused a really bad injury or multiple injuries, or was too prideful. Like I know there's somebody that I'm thinking of recently, where they are very well respected as like being an educator, and like being somebody with a level of prestige on like the East Coast. And they apparently kind of were very self-centered with the way that they handled like injuries happening that they caused, and not really maybe treating it as seriously as they could have, because they just were resistant to having meaningful accountability happen for some reason. And so, yeah, I think people can go too far with it. I think if we had dependable means to access accountability, and we actually held people accountable, there would not be the level of vitriol online towards people that have done bad things. What I have seen happen, and what I have participated in myself, is I have seen people that do below the bare minimum effort to like apologize and recognize I did something bad, I should have done something different. And people fucking fall over themselves to be like, oh my God, yes, queen, yes, you're doing it. You're so brave for apologizing, for giving this person a permanent nerve injury, or like whatever it is, right? It could be a broken pinky, it could be a nerve injury, it could be whatever. And people like they're sort of like the initial story gets this like oftentimes very like sort of like, oh my God, I hate this person type reaction. But then the apology, like the bare minimum of like, it was probably a bad idea for me to use a meat cleaver on somebody's pinky the first time we did a scene together. These are all ridiculous made up scenarios, but like, they shouldn't have done that. That maybe was a bad idea. People go, oh my God, yes, thank you for taking accountability. And it's like, okay, we don't need to like overly praise somebody for doing the bare minimum. You're basically like praising a 10-year-old for being able to write their own name on a piece of paper. Like this should be the baseline expectation. What I really think is important is for the accountability process, for being able to move forward, is I don't need your dumb ass to go on the internet and type out something where you say, I am very sorry, I promise I won't do it again, How do we take accountability if we don't own a ukulele? That's true. God damn it. We forgot about this. Oh, you're right. That's what we're missing. We need to have accountability ukulele circles. Then we'd be able to solve this problem. Real lickety split. You're right. Thank you. That's exactly it. But yeah, I think besides the ukuleles, though that is an important part, I don't give a shit if you just type something nice online that says, I pinky promise I won't smash anybody's pinkies anymore with hammers. I don't care. What I want you to do is do better. I want you to have this is me, like my apology style, so I'm kind of projecting what I want to see onto like everyone, and I recognize that like globally, not everyone's going to want the same thing. What ultimately is the most important is the person who was hurt gets the apology they want in the way they want it. Be that publicly, privately, verbally, a fucking text message, an email, a voice note, a video call, whatever it is. Primarily, it should be about the victim. But if you're a public figure especially, or you feel like you want to make a public apology to like redeem yourself in the eyes of other people, if you're gonna do that, I don't give a shit where you give me some flowery ass bullshit about like, I recognize that my actions have hurt others. I don't want that. What I want you to do is I want you to come up with a fucking plan of like, this is what I've done wrong. Here's what I'm going to be doing differently. Okay. I'm going to take these classes. I'm going to go to this kind of therapist. I am going to withdraw from the community and participating in kink with new partners for X number of months or years. Like, I want very concrete action steps so that way other people know what the fuck you're supposed to be doing and can monitor you to see if you're doing it. Okay, good question from Alex. It should pop up probably soon here, but I'll read it out now. What is the best way to explain to your partners, both kink and vanilla, that you would like to live alone and that you travel a lot, weeks to months on end? Is it best to break it off to subs who may find that hard? A lot of twos in that. Good question. I will definitely answer that one. But to finish up this thought, like, I think if you want to actually give a good apology, make concrete action plans, follow them, be publicly accountable for if you follow them or not, and realize that it's not really just about like, I did the 10 steps, now I'm forgiven, it's removed from my permanent record. Like, no, people are still probably going to be mad and hurt. You may still be banned from certain spaces. You may not be welcome in certain spaces with the person that you hurt. Sorry, that's the price we pay for taking stupid actions, I suppose, and being flippant with people's safety and security, and then being like, well, but it could happen to anyone. No, it doesn't happen to anyone, because most people realize that trying to smash pinkies with hammers is a scene idea that's not going to end particularly well. Even if you're doing risk-aware. This is the thing. I've noticed a lot of people on FetLife will, like, when they are trying to justify their abuse or their bad behavior or injury-causing patterns of behavior, they will say, but I do risk-aware consensual kink. I'm a rack player. I don't do SSC. The kink I do is risky. And it's like, okay, but did you do the risk-informing part, though? Or did you just, like, start doing it? Because I think a lot of people sort of say that phrase and they don't really know what it means, because if you're not actually aware of the risks for the thing you're trying to do and then you do it and then you're surprised with the outcome that happens, you weren't actually risk aware in the first place. You were risk ignorant. You were rink. You were risk ignorant, non-consensual kink. Yeah, so you have to be very careful about what you're doing, and if you are doing really risky play where the risks are unknown, then you have to have an open conversation of like, we're going to do this thing, we both understand we don't really know the extent of the risk that could happen with this, and we're willing to take that on. Because when it comes to like potential medical issues, most people in the scene are like working class, regular Joe Schmoes. They do not have an extra $500 for paying for 5 seconds in an ambulance, okay? Like, you have to be very cautious, at least if you're in America, and healthcare is expensive out the ass in the way that it is. You have to be very careful about what you're doing, the risk you're taking on. Anyways, that's my rant about accountability and people that don't take it. And they think they take it, but what they've really given is a PR apology, and I do not give a singular shit about your PR apology. See Colleen Ballinger for more information. Like, I'm just over it. I'm over the, like, performative, like, dominant self-flagellating over, like, I am a terrible person, and I've done something horribly wrong. Please, can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Like, I'm so over it. Like, I don't give a shit. Stop flagellating yourself in the public square. Just, like, knuckle down, change your behavior, and get over it. Okay, just stop hurting people. Stop being abusive, all right? Stop. Like, I think, honestly, like, sometimes people over-respond to allegations or accusations to change the conversation to be sympathetic towards them because, oh no, don't beat yourself up about it. Like, they know what they're doing. And it annoys me that it happens as often as it does, but you know what? Abuser's gonna be abusive, right? I said the word abuse a lot in this live stream. Hopefully this doesn't get, like, demonetized or, like, age restricted later, but we'll see. I had someone
Rosie
violate my consent.
Rosette
Oh,
donated
Rosie, I'm so sorry.
$10.
And now
I
I
had
don't want to play
someone
with him
violate my
anymore. However,
consent,
he was
and now I don't play with
intoxicated
him
and
anymore.
inebriated, and he admitted
However, he was
what he did was
intoxicated
wrong
and
and
inebriated,
apologized.
and
So we're
he
cool
admitted
now.
what he did was wrong
Still
and
never going to play with
apologized,
him again,
so
but
we're
I'll chat
cool
with him.
now.
Okay, well, thank you for
Still
sharing,
never
Rosie.
going to play with him again.
That is, oh, here we go. Is that that should be the noise. Yeah, I think you're totally within your rights to never want to play with him again. If it's a person who is intoxicated and inebriated and then does behavior they can't control and can't stop, that's hurtful to themselves and to you, and you have every right to not be around that. That's awful. I'm so sorry. It's this is why I don't play around alcohol. This is why, like, if I go to a party and I drink, either only play with people I already know, or I mean, honestly, whenever I drink very, very lightly. It's like, oh, I have one drink and that's it. But if it does happen, it's very sparing, and it is something where I don't go and, like, try to meet new people for pickup play or, like, do any kind of intense scenes. It's like, it's 99% of the time, it's going to be social or very light play with people I already know. And that's really it, because that's how dangerous playing with alcohol and substances is. And anyone who, like, purposely gets, like, hammered and then does a scene, I think that's probably a bad road to be going down. But getting back to, yeah, I do over apologize a lot, but I always work to change it as well. I had somebody leave a question about that the other day in a video, and who somebody was talking to. I think you have to keep in mind that not everyone who is a toxic person or a bad communicator is always like, you know, my way or the highway, you know, shut up, I'm always right. A lot of people that are also manipulators use over-apologizing to create that. They over-apologize, and they over-apologize with the intention of taking the focus off the original person who was hurt and focusing the empathy on themselves and making it so that way you can't really confront them about problematic behavior that they engage in because, you know, me, I'm so sad, I'm so bad, I'm so horrible, I'm awful, you know, I'm gonna, like, people that go right to, like, I'm gonna Minecraft myself, I'm gonna jump off a bridge, I'm gonna do this, that, and the other, like, people that instantly go to, like, I'm so horrible, I shouldn't even exist, you should just break up with me, I understand if you never want to talk to me again, like, people who go really extreme with it, like, 0 to 100, like, especially if it's out of nowhere, and it's like, I've never even talked to you, like, in this serious tone before, where is this coming from, like, worth investigating that one. Anyways, getting to Alex's question of what's the best way to explain to your partners, both vanilla and kink, that you'd like to live alone and that you travel a lot. Is it best to break it off with subs who may find that hard? I would not remove that choice with them before you've had the conversation. I think proactively breaking things off with them because you're like, oh, will it be too hard on them, is unfair. Again, Seagull Ballinger. Exactly. I recently heard of a consent model called RASH in a class, but I can't find any info on it. Do you know what it means? Teacher didn't explain. If they didn't explain, that's wild. It sounds familiar. Let me noodle on it and I'll get back to you because that does sound familiar, but I can't place what the acronym actually stands for. But yeah, I would not break it off with this or both of these people before you've talked to them. Something I have struggled to explain with people that I've lived with before is that I don't need to live with people to feel connected, happy in the relationship. I am perfectly content having a relationship where we live separately, we have separate bedrooms, you know, one person travels a lot. Like, as long as we're talking, and when we're talking, we're being honest, open, and we can talk about anything, you know, that's really what I want. Now, I have to be clear. Like, by talking about anything, I don't mean we literally share every single secret forever. Like, I think being able to have boundaries around, like, secrets and not sharing everything ever as an obligation is fine. But I think, like, having the ability to talk about, your day, your favorite show, your music you're listening to, your workout at the gym, your hobbies, like, and having all that be respected and listened to is really powerful. Yeah, don't proactively break it off. I would just explain to them very, very calmly, hey, one of the great things about kink and also polyamory, I assume, is that we get to choose our own path for relationships, and we don't have to follow the relationship model that is set out by society. We don't have to be on this relationship escalator of like living together and spending 12 plus hours a day together. And, we should just be able to, sorry, I said should, I didn't mean that. You know, we don't have to like live together, get married, do any of that stuff. We get to live our own lives. And something I really love about our relationship is that like we get to all be our own people and then also get to be really amazing together. I've really been thinking about it. I think for me, what I really want out of a relationship is I do want to be able to live alone. I do travel a lot for a long period of time. I don't think I would make a very good partner to live with because of how long I would be gone for and how often I would be gone for. And, just explain it like that's what you want. That's where you're at. Leave the conversation open for them to say their piece and what each of them wants from a relationship. But make sure that you're being firm about, like, this is what I think I want from a relationship. And, like, maybe it's not a hard thing. Maybe you're open to living together, but you don't think that you want that. Maybe you'd be okay living together if you... Oh, thank you for the super chat. Okay, we'll fucking get to that. Give me a second to like wrap this thing up. Yeah, I think you just like you may have some kind of compromise in there, right? Like maybe you get a split level house and like you're in the basement and you have like the whole basement is like your whole zone and the upstairs is their whole zone and you like share the kitchen. Like you can come up with living arrangements where you get to live more separately but still get to have conscious shared time together. Personally, that's like my favorite model. I don't really like living with partners. I don't really like I like doing my own thing. Like roommates are fine, I guess. Like that's sort of, capitalism, baby. Like honestly, most living decisions for me are created based on like not like I have to live with somebody because I just love them so much I can't bear to be apart for more than 2 hours a day. Like it's because the fucking rent in Seattle is like $2,500 for a fucking studio. Like it's nuts. It's insane. Yeah. And you should be able to express what your needs are. You should be able to say what those things are, have them be respected. And if they're like, I only want to have a relationship with you where we eventually live together and we have a living together arrangement that looks like sharing a bed and sleeping together every single night, and they can't handle that, like it might be best to decide mutually to end the relationship because your goals aren't compatible, but leave room for that conversation to happen and for everyone to be able to express what their ideals are. I might even proactively ask them first to share like what they want to have in a future. I find a lot of poly people, their dream is like, I want to live together on like an eco farm and like have a commune and we all live together in one big house with like 10 kids and like 5 parents and like it's just like it's like a fucking it's like a some sort of bizarre, well, I don't know, try not to make any normative judgments here, but sort of a very specific sort of hippie-esque way of living that I don't think everyone really wants. But if you kind of pre-put in like this is what I want to have happen, they may tailor their answer to suit what they think that you want or what they know based off what you said that they want. Or that, wait, I confused myself. They may tailor their answer based off of what they know that you want based off what you said you want. So maybe have them go first and then share yours and then have a conversation after that. But it's difficult. It's not an easy conversation, but if you really know in your heart of hearts that what you want is to live alone and be able to travel without guilt, that's valid, I mean, eventually down the line, right? Like you end up in a poly scenario where like you got one, couple in like a single family house and then you're like vibing in the ADU in the backyard. You've got your little like little Airbnb unit in the back where you've got your own little kitchen and like a studio and a 1 bedroom and you get to be, free for as much as you want. You get to travel when you want and you can have so many great dynamics that way. Okay. because this is $20, I will answer this one. I find this fascinating because it's just like it's the mentality is. Anyways, if you like the answer, by the way, give us a like because that was a long-winded answer. Oh, okay. Trying to be nice, and bless you for trying to be nice, not in a southern way, in a genuine way. But can you explain explain to me why some girls like being abused? Really, I'm trying to just understand. Love your videos, dude. Not trying to be weird here. So because you're on my channel, I'm going to assume that what you're doing. Oh God, I got an eyelash in my eye. Oh my God. Jesus. I have mascara on too, which makes it the worst because then I can't really. Oh God. Okay. Hopefully it's not going to scratch at my eyeball too much. Okay. I think I got it out. Okay. Cause the worst. Okay. Sorry. Wow. Entertaining content. Right as I'm trying to answer a question about whether or not people are being abused. So BDSM's not abuse. Very clearly not abuse. I can even pull up the abuse wheel. Why don't we just do that? We'll talk about what abuse is. So kink is not abuse. So there's a really great like power and control wheel that I like to reference. There's if you're trying to evaluate whether or not abuse exists in a relationship, right? There's the use of intimidation, like making someone afraid by using looks, actions, gestures, smashing things, destroying property, abusing pets, or displaying weapons. That does not happen in BDSM relationships. Using coercion and threats, making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt them, threatening to leave them, or to kill themselves, to report her to welfare. Wait, is this the right? Okay, this is the right one. This uses she, her pronouns for the victim, and I don't love that. I like to use they, them, but forgive me if I'm reading this and I use they, them instead. Making them drop charges or making them do illegal things. That also doesn't happen in BDSM. Using economic abuse, preventing her from keeping a job, making her ask for money, giving her an allowance, taking her money, not letting her know about or have access to her family income. Using privilege, like treating her like a servant, making all the big decisions, acting like the master of the castle, being the one to define men's and women's roles. Use of children, that definitely doesn't happen in BDSM. Minimizing, denying, and blaming, making light of the abuse and not taking their concerns about it seriously, saying the abuse didn't happen, shifting responsibility for abusive behavior, saying that they caused it. Using isolation, controlling what they do, what they see, and who she talks to or who they talk to, what they read, where they go. Limiting their outside involvement in the world, using jealousy to justify actions, and then emotional abuse, putting them down, making them feel bad about themselves, calling them names, making them think that they're crazy, playing mind games, humiliating them, or making them feel guilty. And so I can see how some of these, especially like the coercion and threats and like the economic abuse categories, those can superficially seem similar to kink, but there is a few key differences between kink and abuse that outline why these are all different. And with kink, everything in kink is explicitly talked about, negotiated, and consented to. These things do not happen unless there is an active yes from all participating parties. When you see somebody who has a power exchange relationship where the partner is given an allowance from their daddy, that is something that both partners want, that will also stop at any time if either party revokes their consent or if any party involved revokes their consent. Because with abuse, you cannot revoke your consent because your consent was already removed at the start of the abuse. It became a non-factor as soon as the abuse started. There is no consent in abuse. But with BDSM, consent is the be-all end-all. If you don't have consent, you don't have BDSM. And so if somebody says, I loved having this allowance dynamic, but right now it's really important for me to be able to save money for a house or to move apartments. So for the time being, I don't want to have this dynamic. I want to focus on these other things financially. You negotiate around that, you change it, and hopefully 99% of the time, you're going to have a partner who's going to understand that, because within BDSM, especially in power exchange, even if what you're doing is a very high level of power exchange, ultimately what you're trying to do is help both people in the relationship be better people. And so that means thinking about, okay, here's my fantasy, here's what I want to do, here's my partner's life, and what will be better for them in their life. And I don't think that this relationship goal in kink matches with their upper, more prevalent and important life goal. Let's focus on the life goal and turn the life goal into a power exchange goal. And also things like using privilege, right? Like the treating her like a servant, making all the big decisions. Again, that is all negotiated, consented to. And also, don't know if I've mentioned this yet, a lot of women, very dominant. We talked about female-led relationships at the top of the stream. A lot of women love being in charge. People like to act for the sake of, like, I don't know, having this perspective on BDSM, that the majority of BDSM is male dom, female submissive. There are lots of male dom, male sub relationships, female dom, female submissive, female dominant, male submissive, all sorts of them, me's, agender folk, all different members of the LGBT plus alphabet mafia doing all their queer weirdness and amazingness all over the power exchange spectrum. So simplifying it as BDSM, blah blah. BDSM is abuse because it's when a man hits a woman but she likes it. Again, it's sort of like mistaking two butterflies as being similar from very far away. Because consent is the be-all end-all. A BDSM partner should not be coercing you, manipulating you, doing any of those things, trying to guilt you into not having limits, trying to coerce you into renegotiating and getting rid of your boundaries. If anyone is doing anything like that to you or somebody you know, if you're having a partner that is engaging in gaslighting or other abuse tactics, if they are denying reality, if they are... If you know you set a limit and you said you can't do this, and then they do it anyway and say, oh, but I didn't know. You never said I couldn't do that. That's wrong. That's bad. And no one, I think, in the BDSM community would support that or should support that. And again, with anything like making big decisions or acting like the master of the castle, even if somebody in the relationship is making decisions like that as the majority shareholder of power in the relationship, as I like to say, they are doing that with the express consent of the person that is giving the power and authority to them, and that power flow would stop at any time if they revoked that. So, but also if what you mean is like women like being hit sometimes and it's sexy for them, then like fucking everybody likes that. Everyone at every gender, anyone, any gender, anywhere, they can enjoy being hit, and it can be sexual, it can be non-sexual. It's really, I think, more than anything, a preference for intense stimulation, and some people are just wired to enjoy more intense stimulus and enjoy things like pain and get something out of that maybe non-kink people don't get. So it's just, if you look at it, and also like the kinds of things that happen in like actually physically abusive dynamics and kinky dynamics are very, very different. Like, you're not getting a fucking warm-up. You're not gonna warm up a nice warm-up spanking when your abuser is throwing you against a wall, okay? Like, if somebody's punching you or giving you black eyes or doing any... I'm gonna stop talking about this because it's gonna be triggering for me personally. But if somebody is physically abusing you and threatening you, it does not look the same as in a BDSM relationship. And I want to be clear here. There are people who disguise their abuse within BDSM, either by saying initially up front, everything I do is okay because it's just BDSM. They nakedly know that what they're doing is abuse, but they go towards people that are... unaware of abuse dynamics, and they are unaware of kink dynamics, and they go, oh, okay, it's fine when he does whatever he wants to my body any time of day, anywhere, even in public, because that's what DS is about. And then because that person doesn't know any better, they just go along with it, and then it becomes very bad very quickly. There's also people that like don't realize they have abusive tendencies that will get into BDSM, and then it'll slowly creep out like poison, slowly killing you over time. Where initially up front, they're great. They practice consent. They practice, safe words, negotiation, communication, all of that same stuff. And over time, they become more demanding, controlling, and when you peel the layers back, you realize that what they're doing is they are using power exchange to plaster over a wound. They are using power exchange to heal themselves and to use other people's bodies and minds to heal their own gaping wounds in themselves. And they use BDSM as a tool to and there's Dr. Kirk Honda, who's a great YouTuber, very highly experienced I think he's a psychologist because he's Dr. Kirk Honda. He's either a PsyD or something like that. I don't know if he's a PhD or a PsyD, one of those two. Great person on YouTube. He talks about this a lot, and the dynamics of abusive people. And he has a lot of theories around like abuse and connection to attachment disorders, which I agree with. I think a lot of abusive dynamics, abusers oftentimes come from like really profound attachment trauma that they don't really know how to deal with. And they're so terrified of losing attachments and losing affirmations of those attachments that they like go towards abuse because that's just, they just think that what they're doing is fine. That's how they learn to maintain their attachments is, they never met a locked door they didn't want to try to unlock. They never, like, anyone who says no to them, that's wrong, that's bad, that causes deep attachment wounds, and they will do what they have to do to get their needs met, even at the expense of other people. But anyways, there are people who will disguise abuse in like BDSM language and then refuse to admit that what they're doing is abusive but I'm the dom, right? And if you try to say no or revoke consent, they will be very pissy about it. They will be very upset. They will say you're reneging on your commitments, you're bad submissive, you're doing this, that, and the other thing, and it's difficult. So, yeah. Bullies in kink clothing, sure, yeah. Oh, thank you. Holy shit, thanks for some awesome response, dude. Go have some fun. Thanks for your videos. Help me through some tough times. Hey, you're so welcome, Talha. You're so welcome. Thank you for the super chat again. So grateful, and I'm glad I could thoroughly answer your question because this is something that's very deeply meaningful to me. And I know so many people in my life that have gone through really toxic relationships, both in and out of BDSM. And I think it's like my duty as an educator, one of the few on this platform talking about kink openly from the perspective that I do. I really feel like it's my responsibility, my duty to make sure I give a very thorough answer to this. So yeah, let's get back to let's answer some fun questions. Let's just talk about the fucking power and violence abuse wheel all day. How about that? Do titles kick in during play or a scene or whenever you step in the community, even amongst strangers, assuming others' titles than talking topics and how to talk to you seem to be in a lot of stories? I would say, actually, so there is a person I really respect in the community named Race Bannon. He's been in the scene for, I don't know, since the fucking 70s, I think. Like before it was even called BDSM, before it was known as S&M, like the old days, okay? Real OG guy. And he had something on Twitter the other day where he was like, somebody introduced himself as like Master So-and-so to me, and that will never not be weird. And he's like, if anyone would ever think that would be normal, you'd think you'd be one of the members of the supposed old guard who's been around for so long, right? So for the most part, Master is like, titles like Master, Mistress, etc. If you see a pro-dom advertising for themselves, they will usually use their title because that's part of their advertising, is like, you get a sense of what kind of dom they are if they say that they're a goddess or a domina or a daddy or whatever. So, and that's like a branding thing that's sort of like separate from lifestyle stuff. But in the lifestyle, most people will not introduce themselves by their title, master, mistress, whatever it is. There may be a title that you use on like FetLife as a screen name, but for the most part, titles are honorifics you use to refer to somebody else. Like if they're like a presenter and they're like on a pamphlet and it's like Master Rick, probably he probably would introduce himself as Rick, not Master Rick. And he would not insist on, there's like a specific Master Rick I'm thinking of, and I don't think he would do this, but maybe he would. I don't recall him being insistent. He usually would just say like, I'm Rick, and this is my boy, whatever, you know. I think it's is it Skip? I think it actually maybe is Master Skip and Boy Rick or something like that. I don't know. I'm fucking getting names mixed up here. There's a lot of similar names in the leather community for masters. But anyways, they maybe would introduce themselves with the title under very certain circumstances, but they would not insist on people using it with them. It's more of sort of a like, hey, this is who I am in the community. This is what I do in a relationship, but not as like a, you must refer to me as Master blah, blah, blah. Like, no, don't do that. Titles tend to mostly be in personal relationships. You could also use one in a scene space. For lifestyle stuff, most people don't tend to do that though. Most people just tend to be like, oh, I'm Everest and this is my partner Kitty. You know, like it tends to be like that's usually how people talk to other people about themselves. You know, people will have scene names, but scene names and titles are not synonymous. Like a scene name is just a name that you don't typically like go by in your everyday life, right? Like if your real name is Jennifer, your scene name might be what's another Jill. I don't know. The fucking Duggar ass names I'm pulling out of my butt here. Oh, the Duggar family. What a saga. Anyways, yes, there are lots of things with titles, and so for the most part, it shouldn't really. I feel like titles are this issue that people get worried about, but they don't really actually come up all that often. What would you? Oh, okay. What would you say the difference is between decorum, protocol, and etiquette? Okay, so I've talked about protocol, but I haven't talked about etiquette and decorum. At some point, I gotta be honest, it feels like splitting hairs. It's just like, do we really need to make sure we know the exact difference between all three of these words? Because for me, I'm very vibes based. I'm very like at this point in my career and in my life, I'm like, just do what feels right to you. Be true to your heart. Love yourself. Be open and honest with your partner. Don't get caught up in like titles or particular words. Just like do what feels right to you as long as it's within negotiated boundaries. Like that's sort of where I'm at currently. But I realize that it can be helpful to know the difference. So protocol I think of as basically like a prescribed list of like how to act under certain conditions, right? Like a protocol would say, when the master comes home, you will kneel by the door, right? That would be a protocol, or something like that. Or like, I don't know, like the line between rules and protocol is also sort of like vague, but I also have a video where I've talked about rules, protocol, and ritual. So if you haven't seen that one, please do. I would say decorum is like, I feel like decorum has a little bit more of like an interpersonal flavor to it, where it's about like how you behave with other people, like having manners essentially. I mean, it's funny because literally one of the two definitions for decorum is just etiquette. So I'm not, maybe there's really not that much of a difference there. Yeah, it says like behaving and keeping with good taste and propriety. So decorum, I think, is like being able to behave appropriately at appropriate times, right? Like having a sense of decorum at a kink event, right? Like having decorum would mean like you don't step into other people's scene space. You don't interrupt their aftercare. You don't make loud negative comments about other people's scenes. Maybe if you're a gossipy bitch, you go over and go, hey, that thing that person's doing is kind of dangerous, or like that scene, like whatever. Like, you can be a little bit snippy in private because, the inner courtesian in all of us loves a little bit of hot court gossip. But, you would never speak ill of somebody in public and out loud. You are a gracious host and a gracious guest. You ask people if they want anything, if you're going to be getting a snack for yourself. You get water, you get refreshments for people. Like, you just, like, act in a pro-social way. And you are aware of the rules and keep with that in the space you're in, right? Like if you're going to a fancy dress party and it says it's a witches and warlocks themed party, you don't show up to the witches and warlocks themed party, dressed as a football player, you know, like, you know, you don't show up dressed completely opposite to the thing. You keep in what other people expect you to do. Now, etiquette, and I want to say Lee Harrington talks about this in one of his classes about like protocol and etiquette and everything. Etiquette is essentially like very similar. It's a customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. So maybe etiquette is more strictly like behavior in terms of like taking off your shoes indoors. You know, like you take off your shoes indoors. You know, you don't put your elbows on the table. You know, that kind of thing. Whereas maybe decorum is more like emotional interpersonal skills. Like if I had to make a delineation, that's what I feel like it is. I don't actually think it makes that much of a difference. Decorum has a negative connotation for me. For me, decorum can also relate to dishonesty, like dishonesty between partners to keep up appearances. Oh yeah, like sure, yeah. I don't know if that's like maybe the default assumption that people would make, but that could be in there. I really want to make brownies all of a sudden. Fuck, I might make brownies after I get home from the gym. That might actually be a good idea. Brownies. Okay, sorry. I had a squirrel brain moment of just like thinking about brownies because I'm very hungry because all I had today was fucking half a glass of water and a fucking cheese stick. Yeah, because we're towards the end of the stream, if I didn't get to an earlier question, please feel free to ask it now, and I will try to get to it as best I can. I usually try to speed round it when I have the ability to towards the end here, because honestly, we've been on like such a great roll today. I've been loving it. So many good questions. We've just been vibing. I love it. There are some FLR people who strongly claim that it's not BDSM, and it's like... Okay. I mean, for me, when I hear somebody who's very adamant about, like, it's not BDSM, like, I'm like, okay, you don't have to say that what you're doing is BDSM, but also, if you're not going to call it BDSM, I hope that you are taking some of the values from BDSM into what you're doing, even if you don't want to call it that, right? Like, consent and negotiation and limits and safe words and being able to revoke consent at any time. Like, you don't have to call it BDSM, but if you are removing the BDSM and then shitting on BDSM for being bad, but then you don't take any of the lessons from BDSM into your own behavior and then you act poorly, I'm gonna have a little judgment. Excuse me. Whew, okay. Any tips on syncing into a sub headspace? Oh, I saw this one. Thank you for, I wanted to get to this one, so thank you for doing it. My super chat, please read. I think I got all the super chats. Let me check real quick. Did I miss a super chat? Oh, I don't know why I didn't see that. I'm so sorry, Max. I don't know why it didn't even pop up on YouTube for me. Okay, let's get to this one. Maybe it popped up at the same time as the other super chat did? That's so strange. Okay. My LD, which I'm assuming is long distance, or what else does that stand for? I think it has to be long distance. My long distance daddy Dom is busy at work and school, and we don't talk as much as we used to. How do I respect his time and get my needs met? He feels bad too. Okay, great question, Max. Love this. And I'm so glad you're asking it because a lot of people deal with a very similar issue. And I know people where, I don't know if this is like a little thing or a brat thing or what it is, but I know a lot of people where, you know, a lot of brats, a lot of littles, okay? We got a lot of needs as people. We have a lot of things that we need to say about our day, and we need somebody that we feel emotionally connected to during that day. You know, people can be overbearing and not mean to be because they're so desperate for that connection and attention, and then it drives somebody away because they feel like their boundaries in time are not being respected, and you don't want to do that, right? And obviously, like, you both feel bad, you want to have a resolution to this. So you both understand the circumstances are not really something that you can do much to change, right? Like, if he's in the middle of a lecture hall, if he's in the middle of a big work meeting or talking to a client or just in the office, he probably can't be texting you like, my sweet baby, I love you so much, XOXO, like, and then sending you like fucking hentai clips or whatever. Like, you can't, it's not gonna happen. So have to understand to some extent that, okay, you sort of have a limitation, but I would sit down with him if you both want to change this and think about, okay, what do we have time for? In the morning before work, in the evening after work, break time, lunchtime. How can we balance both of our needs and not overwhelm each other with expectation, but also make sure we are making time to get those needs met? Personally, what I have found to be really, really helpful is voice notes. And like, I fucking discovered this like this year. This is like a revolutionary thing for me. I normally don't send them. I'm very strictly normally just a texter. I feel like it's very helpful to send voice notes. Because especially if your partner is like if they're really busy and it can take a long time to text, okay? Like if you're going paragraphs back and forth, that shit takes time. So it might be better if you have like headphones you can pop in and like work on a break. I think personally, listening to a 5 minute long voice note is way more connective than texting back and forth for 5 minutes. If you only have 5 minutes, 5 minutes is a long time to monologue at somebody. Like, you got a lot of time to tell them about Brenda the office bitch and how traffic was bad in the morning on the way to work and how you're overwhelmed about this project and how you had this really good food for lunch or whatever. Like, you get to ramble about your day and feel connected. And like, you may not be able to talk about explicitly kinky stuff, but you do have a lot more time to like connect, and you can hear their voice, which is more reassuring, I think, in most cases than like just seeing a text message is. So you have lots of options for that. I think voice notes are a good option. Sending a picture back and forth, maybe when you're on a lunch break, if you can do that, just like snapping a quick pic of your lunch or taking a selfie, sending that real quick. That takes what, like 5 seconds? Like, it's, especially if you're doing it kind of like the silly Snapchat way. You can do it kind of like where you're not trying to be like beautiful. You can just be kind of silly and doing a silly pose. And then you can also use it as a tool for like checking in if you have like rules around like meal times or water check-ins. That's a really good way to do that. So yeah, that would be, I think those would be my main tools, is just like evaluating what you have time for, try to make the most out of the time that you do have, do simple things, like whether it be, you could send them a message in the morning when you first wake up before they do. If you have like a mismatch in terms of when you both wake up, you can send a voice note in the morning as you're like getting ready for work, or during work if you have the ability to like go out to your car or like be in a private place. And just like, you know, it can be really encouraging and really fun to hear from your partner, I think, in that environment. But yeah, I think just also finding other times outside of work and school to like reconnect and have meaningful one-on-one, like face-to-face time is really big. And hopefully that'll help you. But I think things like, yeah, I've never heard of voice notes before. Is that like a texting thing? So that is when you're like, usually if it's in, I don't know if it's like a Signal or like if it's all the apps now. I think if you're using anything other than just like standard SMS, you should probably be able to do this. It's essentially when you send a voice recording of your voice to somebody. I think you can even do it over like Instagram DMs now. So you can send a voice recording of your voice to somebody and then they can play it. It's like basically, it's like phone calling on a delay. It's like talking on a phone with a delay. It's essentially what it is. I haven't thought of voice notes. That's so smart. Thank you so much. It means so much. Well, you are so welcome. I really, really hope that it helps. I know it's probably really simple, but I genuinely think it will make a big difference for you. Just being able to hear each other's voices, I think, is really connective. Especially if you can't like go on lunch at the same time, or your school breaks and work breaks don't really line up with each other. It's a good way to stay connected and feel close. Absolutely. Okay, I'm trying my best to get to everything that I'm like obligated to get to. I try my best here. We don't have a ton of time left. I will try. Oh yeah, I think Facebook Messenger has it too. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't know, but sure they probably have. You can probably you can even do there's tons of other apps too for like sending each other like fingerprints, like you're touching fingerprints with each other, or like a vibrating like a wrist thing where like when you touch your fingers or like touch your palms together to the wrist thing, it like vibrates on the other person so you can feel physically connected. There's a lots of tools for long distance relationships. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Discord. Yeah, absolutely. Voice notes at conferences to keep track. Yes. Many, many good uses for voice notes. Okay, let me see. I absolutely need to get to, okay, what the fuck? Okay, there was one that was about something I really wanted to I just saw it. Where did it go? Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, congratulations on starting T. That's so exciting. Yay. Good luck. I know, especially on the NHS, it's like a fucking long waiting list too. So good job. Oh, where'd it go? I just saw it. Okay, wait. Okay, sorry, don't kill me. I'm gonna like scroll to like the current part of the chat, and then I'm gonna try and scroll back and find it again from there. It was from Faith. It was one of Faith's questions, wasn't it? Somebody with an F. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is what it was, the sub headspace question. Any tips on sinking into a sub headspace? I'm still new to DS, and some stuff still makes me think that it's weird. Example, titles over text feels natural, but in person I get it in my head even though I like it. Okay, well, so you know you like it. I think if it felt bad and it didn't feel good, just like drop it. But if you know you like it and it feels weird, I will say this. There have been years of my relationships where I have used various titles. And then when I stop and think about it, I'm like, I literally just called that person, this is not a title I've used with somebody, but I'm going to use it as an example. I literally called that person master every fucking day for like 5 years. Like, now I think about it and it's like, how to do that? That sounds so awkward and so forced and what the heck? And I think when you get into it and used to doing it, it will start to feel more natural over time. I think maybe finding more ways to say it out loud to yourself. Like, again, you could do the voice note thing, right? Where instead of texting, you're saying the title to yourself over a voice note and then hearing it back. That might help you feel more comfortable with it, or like saying it in the shower, or saying it in the car. Like, just have more ways to say it. I think that'll make it a little bit of an easier transition. And I think just being honest with what you get out of being a submissive, not trying to force anything because that's what submissives do. I think a lot of people on both sides of the slash and also switches, they get very in their heads about like, but this is what subs do. This is what doms do. And so because I'm a dom, because I'm a sub, that means I have to like this title and this activity and this, you know, orgasm training and collars and whatever, you know, and you don't have to like any of that. You don't have to like any of it. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. And just be honest with yourself about what you want, and don't feel like you got to hang on to anything that doesn't feel natural and feels good to you. Especially if you know that it does feel natural over text, and that's probably a good sign you can hold on to that one. But don't get too upset if you discover in your journey that like something that all subs are supposed to do doesn't feel natural and good to you, and you don't really want to do it. As far as like sinking into a submissive headspace, this is gonna feel like a really stereotypical answer, but I feel like the main thing that gets in the way of people from accessing their sub headspace is some combination of self-consciousness and external life stress. So if you can find time before you do, like, especially in-person kinky stuff, or like if you're gonna do like a pre-arranged role play thing online or whatever, you can set aside time ahead of time. Like, give yourself probably at least like 10 to 20 minutes to do this. Like, you don't have to do it for hours, but like give yourself a chunk of time. Having a set aside chunk of time for deep diaphragmatic breathing, maybe doing some kind of meditation if you enjoy that, maybe saying some kind of mantra that reaffirms your submissive position. You could even have your dominant partner write a mantra for you to say while you're doing this. This is the thing. This is why I'm talking about this, because this blew my mind when I heard it, and I was like, how does no one say this when we talk about this? The reason why deep breathing is calming, it's not just because air is good for you, okay? It's not just because breathing make brain happy. It's not that. Your vagus nerve is like directly right next to your diaphragm. No one explained that to me. And I've been going to meditation, yoga classes, all sorts of different things where like breathing exercises are like fucking bar classes even, where this is a big component of what happens during them. No one ever told me that the reason why deep breathing is calming is because of how it connects to your vagus nerve, and how deep breathing signals to your vagus nerve to like change which part of your central nervous system is activated or not. Like, it makes so much sense now. It blew my mind when I heard that. So, Deep breathing is not just like some fucking la shit where it's like just like some yogi people said that breathing is nice and suddenly everyone believed it. Like there's a very like understandable direct connection between breathing and a major nerve that has a huge impact on our whole body and how it feels. So set aside some time for diaphragmatic breathing. Have some kind of mantra that your partner writes out for you or that you make for yourself that connects to your submissive headspace. And I don't know what your submission is like, so I can't really suggest a mantra that will work for you specifically. But something that, like, if your submission is very like romantic and service oriented, let's say, you might have a mantra that says, like, I am so grateful for being your submissive. I love every day that I get to serve you, and I can't wait to see what we get to do next. Like, just something that's like that's like a really bad one. But like, because I just said it right now. But like, find something that like, it makes you smile when you say it. It feels good. It feels positive. Something that makes you feel connected with like your sub headspace, whatever that looks like. And then just repeat that as you're, and I'm saying diaphragmatic breathing, but I'm not explaining it because I don't have a lot of time. But basically, you're just like fully expanding your chest cavity. You're breathing down in through your pelvis, fully expanding in all directions. A lot of people have a tendency, and I do this too, I tend to shallowly breathe from the like, top half of my lungs, which is really not good for you. So breathing with your full chest all the way down into your body and all the way back out again, trying to have your exhale be longer than your inhale. I also like square breathing, which is a similar concept, but you breathe in for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and then exhale for 4 counts. I really love doing that. It's another great technique, especially if you like visualization. You can visualize the square in your head and going around the square. And that can be very centering and very calming. And the idea of this is it gets you out of your everyday headspace. It gets you into your submissive headspace with something reaffirming to your submission. And it should set you up for a better, calmer, more connected experience when you get there. Okay. Okay. Let me see here. Who counted the fetishes in the Barbie movie? Ben Shapiro, probably. Probably Ben Shapiro. Okay. Fuck. Okay, we have time for like maybe one more question. I'm sorry. I'm probably about to be very unfair with whatever question I ask. So, oh wait, no, here's one. Also from Faith. Someone replied to my question earlier. I jokingly mentioned it's like a judgy vanilla audience in my head, keeping me from enjoying things with my dom/husband the way I want to. Thanks for streaming me. Yes. Fuck. Okay, back to the DBT cards real quickly. Back to the cards. There's one in here I want to show you. Okay, wait. Let's do it this way. Opposite. Because I totally know. Okay, that's shame. There's shame in your head happening. We're going to banish the shame, all right? So you're doing the right thing. So shame, if we feel shame, what do? We do the opposite unless if this is opposite if it's not warranted. This is not anytime you feel an emotion. This is just like when your shame or your emotion either is not productive to act on or doesn't fit the facts of what you're going through. I think both are true in this case. Shame pushes people into hiding, not wanting others to know how unlovable, damaged, or otherwise unacceptable they fear they might be. Shame operates in the dark, so the opposite action is to come out of hiding, sharing what causes shame with someone who can be accepting and non-judgmental. Which is me. So congratulations, you did it. You've already done the opposite action. Look at you. You should be proud. But sharing with your partner about how you feel about them and your relationship, and that you want to be able to say these things, and that I mean, honestly, if you like visualization, this is what I would do. You have that audience in your head. Literally, just like when you're doing your diaphragmatic breathing and you're giving yourself that positive mantra, when you're breathing, picture yourself in front of that audience of people that are trying to shame you, and then you go, hey, I didn't realize what you're doing. Thanks for trying to help me out here, shame. I know that you're worried that if I do this, I'm going to be socially rejected. I am going to be put down by others. Other people are going to be weirded out by what I do. But this makes me happy. And I know that you're just trying to protect me. I know that what you're trying to do is help me avoid a potentially bad situation. But I got this. You don't got to worry about it. I've got it covered. Really nothing to worry about. So, like, go have fun at the beach. Go play. Go have a margarita. Go somewhere else. I don't want to deal with your shame. Thanks for the visit, though. See you later. And just like, I honestly feel like dealing with negative emotions in a very positive way where you're like, hey, thanks for the information, brain. Thanks for trying to help me out here. I recognize that you're trying to help me out, do this, that, and the other. If you can't figure out why they're trying to help you, ask your brain, hey, why are you guys here? What are you worried about? Why are you trying to make me feel ashamed by doing this? What are you afraid of? And then hopefully those little visualized images in your head will say, well, if somebody finds out about this, they're going to think we're fucking weird. And they're going to, and you're going to be like, all right, calm down. I'm basically teaching you how to do IFS. Like, this is what IFS is. But again, not a therapist, just saying this is very helpful for me on a very low level of like, our emotions are almost always trying to help us out with something, either rationally because when our house is on fire, it's good to be afraid that the house is on fire because it helps motivate us to proper action. But if we are acting out of scope and we are ashamed of things that we don't need to be ashamed of, if we feel guilt over things we don't need to be guilty about, it prevents us from actually doing things that make our life happy and healthier, and our brain can become skewed over time by past negative experiences or assumptions or the way that we were raised into acting in ways that aren't fully appropriate. Bandit does by doing that and doing that very well. She's a very sleepy girl. She had a big day hanging out with all the squirrels. She does like the squirrels, it's true. Okay, so do we have any last minute questions or follow-ups? Thank you all so much for watching, by the way. We do these every Friday. If you want to come hang out, we do them every Friday at 6 o'clock. Yeah, I think we may, the very last Friday in August, it's August. It is August. I was about to say, no, it's not August. It's July. No, it is August. The very last Friday in August might be a little bit funky, but otherwise, we will be here. We'll be here and we will be doing it. Yes, Banditi is the doggo. Okay, my stream health is like real bad right now for some reason, and I genuinely do not know why. Anyways, praise the doggo in her sleepiness. She's truly adorable, if nothing else. Okay, so I hope that helped. I am so sorry I couldn't get to everyone's questions. I very, very rarely do. She is truly the napping champion. Absolutely. So yeah, we will wrap things up for today. Thank you all so much for being here. Have an amazing weekend. Stay safe. Have fun. Listen to yourself. Listen to your emotions. Find awesome, great connection. And you deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel happy.